The first nucleus of the community of Alfano dates back to the Swabian domination. From that regional nucleus, in the course of various events, a fifth was born almost at the borders of the great pre-existing baronies of Cilento, Alfano. This medieval origin of the city of Alfano doesn't exclude previous settlements in the archaic Roman and early Middle Ages epochs in the territory of the present city area. Historians observe that the toponymy Alfano stands for Alfio Praedium in Latin, translatable in Alfio's property. At the end of the Swabian age, Alfano must have had around 15 inhabitants. In 1266, the Angevin period started, after the death of the natural son of Frederick II Manfredi, defeated by Charles I d'Anjou in the Battle of Benevento. In the Angevin registers, Alfano is often mentioned in relation to fiscal matters. In fact, the city was accused of having conceived 3 family nucleuses. In the year 1442, the Aragonese domination began. During the years, the fief of Alfano was granted by Aragoneses to Filippo dal Verme, descendant of a noble Veronese family already famed for various political, social, cultural episodes, who settled in the city of Cilento after his exile. A lot of people considered Italian immigration an escape, a protest against the precarious conditions of life and work in which the populations had been for centuries, exploited by groups of power. Besides this, it was also an outlet made possible by the new liberty brought by unification of the country. From 1884 to 1915, 635 natives left Alfano. These transoceanic emigrants were directed to Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina, and later to the United States. In Brazil, in reality, Italian emigrants replaced little by little the old black slaves, taking their place in the fazendas of potent landowners. In Argentina, Italians would have filled the social gap existing between landowners and the workers. Like many other Cilento people, many inhabitants of Alfano emigrated to Uruguay, country where the site conditions resulted appealing for Cilento inhabitants. In the last decade of 19th century, thanks to the great economic expansion in that country, the migratory flow moved to the United States, where manpower was required in relationship to an extraordinary industrial development. In the 20s and 30s, the huge exodus towards the United States was almost coming to an end, in favor of emigration to Europe and northern Italy. At the beginning of the second half of the 20th century, many Alfano inhabitants also emigrated to Venezuela. In 1948, a bilateral agreement was signed between Italy and Switzerland, in the circumstance of persistent Italian immigration to the country of cantons, started from the second half of the 19th century. In 1964, a new bilateral agreement, Italy-Switzerland, was ratified in which the regulations in respect of the workers' families found partial attenuation, since it was established that Swiss authorities could authorize wife and smaller children to reach the head of the family and reside with him in Switzerland, at particular conditions. After this, the migratory flow increased towards the all-variegated industrial apparatus, as well as towards every Swiss working activity. In Alfano are present many historical architectural testimonials, like the valuable ancient baronial palace. We have no precise documented information about it, yet the presence of arches and cross vaults make us date it around the 16th century. Among the illustrious families living in Alfano, we remember the Dal Verme lineage. Taking into account the construction style, it is very likely that the palace can be attributed to this noble family. The structure has a rectangular floor plan measuring 21 per 28 meter with inner courtyard. The front entrance, framed by an imposing portal in local stone, positioned at the center of the building's short side, gives access to a hallway covered by two ribbed walls. In front of it, across the courtyard, is the mighty three-flight stone stairway preceded by an artistic portico with three arches also supported by vaults. At the upper floor, from two opposite sides of the loggia that looks out on the inner courtyard, is the access to the rooms that originally formed the residence with the annexed private chapel. All the rooms at the first floor are covered by wooden ceilings. The central room, in correspondence with the hallway, has a false vault ceiling. The exterior facades are characterized by ledges in local stone, always supported by large stone shelves, positioned at every corner, anciently used as guard posts. According to popular records, the jus prima noctis practice was applied in the building. In line with it, in the jails were carried out real tortures, till death, of those women found impure before their wedding. The certain news is that last owners of the palace were the Speranza barons, whose last heir Esmeralda, in the 70s of last century, gave the buildings and the lands to the Episcopal Curia of Vallo della Lucania. In the past, the building has hosted both the town hall in 1860 and the elementary school. In Alfano is another building of 18th century origin, belonging to the Novelli family. Its architectural typology is characterized by linear and symmetrical plant, by the presence of arches in the central entrance hall and of four friezes, three of which used as fountains. As it's deduced by the Catasto Onciario dated 1754, besides the forge mill, the Novelli family was owner of other productive activities like the Trappeto oil mill, located in the basement of the palace. The Church of San Nicola di Mira is situated in the principal square of the old town centre. It has a longitudinal plant, a single nave not perfectly regular, with side elevated altars, which ends with a presbytery also elevated in comparison to the nave. The side walls are marked by altars built in niches and separated by a combination of arches and pilaster strips that support an imposing string course frame that runs along the whole aisle. Above these are small rectangular windows that have the function of illuminating the aisle by diffused light. Besides the stone-high altar of great artistic value, the church has other two altars. The one on the left dedicated to San Nicola, of whom the church keeps a wooden statue with relic, and the one on the right dedicated to San Antonio, partially demolished during the last century and reconstructed only a few years ago. Inside are many canvases, among which one representing Our Lady of the Rosary, dated 1769, and others painted in 2004 by local artist Mario Romano, following the interior painting restoration works. The bell tower, not much visible because very low, is obtained on the right, where the presbytery gets narrower in respect to the aisle. The front is composed of three levels. The first one, outlined by natural pilasters, has a sandstone portal. String course cornices separate the first and second levels, with three arched windows and pilasters also supporting the cornice, over which the triangular fronton is installed, decorated by an arched opening in the tympanum and with the cross on its apex. One of the most suggestive places in the district of Alfano unwinds along the ancient road from the Ferriera, Forge, up to the river Mingardo, Faraone, where one is hugged by families of alders, poplars, reeds, and willows, and welcomed by giant rocks emerging from the clear waters. In the past, the river has been a source of life and wealth for the ancient residents of the place, like the miller, the laundress, the fisherman, and the farmer, that for centuries have exploited water resource to process flax and manufacture precious yarn, as well as to produce essential goods. And exactly along the course of the river, we find the water mills, the carcara, the furnace, the carbonita, the ancient forge, that has been, till the end of 19th century, a very important handicraft, industrial activity for whole Cilento. In the Alfano area, a short section of the river had been paved with slabs of stone on which to place underwater the flax bundles, which underlines that flax were particularly cultivated upstream of Faraone. Arrangements about flax maceration in the river Faraone were already comprised in the Alfano Statute of 1500, granted by Baron dal Verme at the time of Baron Diego Vitali. Flax was a produce present in almost all the cultivated lands, together with wheat and maize. Where wheat had been reaped in the previous months, in the second half of August, flax seeds were sowed without tilling or hoeing the soil before. Along the river grew, and still grows, the wild willows from which were taken the weakest to weave the typical baskets, panari. The rosemary willows have roots growing in the running water. They sometimes form bushes along the stream banks. From the low bushes of such wild willows, the sprigs were cut to obtain wickers. The sprig bark was removed by a rough cloth during spring, when willows had buds ready to blossom. Only then the bark came off easily. Alfano community lived its productive self-sufficiency with limited external commercial relationships. Almost all that was necessary for life was produced on the spot. Even the construction material for the houses was local. They sometimes operated a lime kiln to get from local stones the lime for walling up the houses. From the furnace, bricks, roof tiles, and other terracotta items came out. In Alfano existed the following lime kilns: Ordino, Casino, and the Carcara of Santa Venera, Caputo. In Alfano, on the banks of River Mingardo, in proximity of the State Road 18, we find the forge, quite a large plant, with a vertical wooden wheel having raised of around 3 meters that operated a mill for cereals and a heavy hammer to process metals. The construction of this workshop was attributed to Hannibal during his raids to southern Italy. In the factory worked 2 stokers, a craftsman, a grinder, and many assistants, besides about 20 charcoal burners scattered in the countryside employed to make charcoal. The process of extraction of the pure mineral from ferrous material was always long and very tiring. In successive phases, the material was heated in 2 ovens walled up in the ground under sort of a cupola with a hole on top for the smoke to exit. The foundry produced the iron pieces of various shapes and different weights to be sold to the blacksmiths to make hoes, plowshares, picks, shovels, and every other utensils for rural life. Until 1850, the foundry was owned by the Novelli family and for a long time also used as flour mill. Today are visible only the ruins of such workshop, improved by the adjacent equipped area, endowed with tables, benches, and playground for children. In the Alfanese section of River Faraone Mingardo, besides the forge, existed several factories, among which the mill forge owned by Carbone, situated along the Melillo Deep Valley in the locality called Acqua Malati, and the Corbucci mill, already operating in 1819, managed by the brothers Cristoforo and Nicola Corbucci, and situated behind the stately stone bridge in 3 spans on State Road 18. In the Middle Ages, feudatores had absolutely and exclusive right to use and exploit the waters present in their territory. They had the ius derivandi and the ius molinandi grants, and, on the basis of such privileges, they could oblige the inhabitants of their feuds to use their mills to grind agricultural produce, making this way high profits. There is a good chance that the mill was built during French domination between 1805 and 1815, when some privileges of the noble were eliminated. Since that time, whoever had the possibility could build a watermill, provided that he left the course of the river open. Unfortunately, milling activities collapsed with the Second World War, when, in January 1943, the provincial section of the Food Authority of Salerno, by the request of the Office for Agriculture and Forests, through prefecture decree, ordered that the mills not considered fit for maximum productivity be shut in the whole province territory. Among these, the Corbucci Hares Mill stopped its activity too. The path of forges departs down line of the cemetery in correspondence with the old Carbonita, and, if you go towards south, reaches the forge. It skirts the river Bight where flax was beaten if you walk towards north. It is actually connected with the path of waters that reaches the extreme northern edge of the town territory, in the place Casino, where anciently the Baron's hunting lodge was situated. It's a walk of incomparable beauty. The path follows the ancient town road that led to the forge, and it's expertly paved with big sandstone slabs. Visitors can admire a large oak before taking the path, and along its first section they are accompanied by vegetables garden and gardens, till they reach the reeds and alders that frame the river. Little beyond the forge, they can glimpse the relics of the stone bridge on which the legend says passed Hannibal. Crossing these paths, travelers feel to be in a fable landscape where it is possible to experience a deep harmony with nature. Boil and peel the potatoes, mash them and add parsley, cheese and finally the eggs. Mix the mixture well, and once it has reached the right compactness, shape padoccole in their typical lengthened form. Fry them in a deep frying pan with abundant oil until they get a nice golden color. For 500 grams of flour, mix the flour adding the water gradually. Once obtained a compact, not too soft dough, roll it with your hands to form thick strings of pasta, then cut them in small cubes. To give pasta their typical shape, hollow each cube out with your fingers. Prepare the same dough as cavatelli. By a rolling pin, make long and large stripes of thin pasta. In the middle of the stripe, put the filling made of ricotta, egg and parsley. Cover with the other edge of the pasta stripe and seal the ravioli one by one before cutting them. Then seal each of them again by a fork. Boil the pasta and season it with traditional meat sauce or tomato sauce. Government of Turin believed that with the fall of Gaeta, the unity of Italy had been definitely achieved, but in the southern provinces was happening the contrary. Southern rural masses reacted violently against unity, giving life to a real popular armed resistance designated with the mark of brigandage. Little by little, many other southern cities rebelled, like those in Cilento headed by Giuseppe Tardio, intelligent and elusive leader of these workers' brigands that upset and devastated Cilento for 2 years. He took command of the band, giving it military organization, and prohibited whatever excess of violence in their ransacking of the villages. Citizens from Alfano, Ascono Detta, Giovanni Greco and Pietro Battagliese also took part in this band. Alfano was also among the ransacked villages. The brigands separated in various bands. One of these was led by Pietro Battagliese. During a gunfire in Palinuro, he was arrested by the royal police, and his companion Giovanni Greco, who had never shown political beliefs but was motivated by spirit of revenge, killed Cono Detta near Camaruso to avenge the honor of his sisters. The ringleader Battagliese was tried and exiled to Isola del Giglio, and Greco was killed while being conducted to the jail of Vallo della Lucania.